There's been something that's been bothering me for a while. There are so many structures that early human civilizations decided to build that would have taken them years or even decades to complete. But today, the majority of people have no clue what they were used for or how those people built them. So today, I compiled a list of the most famous ancient human structures and tried to find the best explanations for why they were built and the processes it took for people to build them. The Great Wall of China was first constructed in the 7th century BC by different states for protection against neighboring enemy civilizations. The wall today spans over 13,170 miles, and the height depends on the location, but it usually stands around 25 feet tall. Over the millennia, the wall saw millions of soldiers taking part in building it. So between the thousands of miles that the wall stretches, there are differently designed areas based on what dynasty it was built in and what resources were available in that place. The wall got the majority of the work done to it by the Ming and Jin dynasties that expanded and reinforced the wall as they expanded their territory and their enemy size got larger. The biggest threat to the Ming dynasty was the increasing size and power of the Mongol Empire. During this period, the Ming dynasty alone added over 5,000 miles to the wall. Unfortunately, it was not enough to stop the Mongol invasion. When Genghis Khan was the ruler in the 13th century, the wall was much less impressive than it is today. It was mostly made of rammed earth, and most of the stone towers that are seen today along the wall were not there. The massive Mongol Empire was able to easily breach the wall and take control of parts of China. However, despite that, the wall still stands today as one of the most impressive buildings of the ancient world, and it still remains the longest wall in the world to this day. Located only 90 miles from London, England, Stonehenge is one of the most recognizable sites from the ancient world. It was first constructed around 3000 BC, but there are signs that the site was changed and renovated on until about 1500 BC. It was constructed during the beginning of the Bronze Age by Celtic tribes. The reason that Stonehenge is so popular and its construction has been so heavily debated is because the stones used to build the structure are around 13 feet high and weigh about 25 tons each. The reason its construction is so baffling is because the stones were arranged in a nearly perfect circle, and it has extremely heavy rocks balancing between the vertical rocks. All of this being completed thousands of years ago without the use of modern equipment like cranes and trucks. The best answer we have for how these people were able to construct the monument was to use ropes for pulling the stone and wooden frames to set it up. As for what Stonehenge was used for, there are a couple of answers. It's theorized that its first use was a cremation site located in a ditch dug in the center of the ring. Later on, the monument was turned into a religious worship site and also served as a way to calculate astronomical events so early humans had a calendar. The monument is aligned with the sun to show when summer and winter solstices are happening. Stonehenge was an extremely complex site for the time it was built in, which is why it's become one of my favorite ancient structures. The Roman Colosseum needs no introduction, as it was such a marvel of ancient engineering. It was built in 72 AD under the rule of Emperor Vespasian, who completed most of it, and his son, Emperor Titus, finished the building in 80 AD. The building was constructed for the purpose of hosting gladiatorial games and animal hunts. It also hosted mock navy battles as well as public executions. The gladiator games were a lot like going to an MMA or boxing fight today, except they were a lot more brutal, and the fighters had weapons. The Colosseum was free admission to all Roman citizens, and it was usually funded by wealthy individuals who wanted to host these grand spectacles as a show of power. But as for the scale of the Colosseum, it stands at roughly 160 feet tall, while being 615 feet long and 510 feet wide. There are some parts that were constructed with laid bricks, but a lot of it was made with revolutionary Roman concrete. Roman concrete is incredibly durable and even has self-healing properties that has allowed the Colosseum and other Roman buildings to survive for almost 2,000 years. The exact recipe for Roman concrete was only rediscovered recently in 2023 by MIT researchers. Before this, nobody knew exactly how Roman buildings were able to stay intact for so long. Although the Colosseum is going through repair work to fix the damages it has sustained over the years, the fact it still exists today is a testament to Roman engineering and ingenuity. Now I know pretty much everyone knows that the pyramids of Giza were constructed as tombs for the pharaohs, but I included them on the list because the logistics of how they were constructed is absolutely ridiculous. The Great Pyramid of Giza, the largest pyramid in the world, was constructed for the pharaoh Khufu and was built over 4,500 years ago. The entire pyramid is made up of about 2.3 million stone blocks, each of those weighing roughly 2.5 tons and are about 4 feet in length and width. The Great Pyramid is 481 feet tall, and it was the world's largest building for over 4,000 years until it was surpassed by the Lincoln Cathedral in England that was built during the Middle Ages. Each of those 2.5-ton blocks needed to be stacked on top of each other for hundreds of feet using only wooden sleds and ropes. For the time, this was an enormous feat. The Great Pyramid took around 20 years to construct, but it has lasted all the way until the modern day, the only one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world that is still standing. The Parthenon is a temple in Athens, Greece that sits at the highest point of the Acropolis of the city. In ancient Greece, an acropolis was a fortified base that usually sat at the center of a city, and there were many of them scattered all over the country. Just a quick side note, would the plural for acropolis be acropolises or acropoli? This question is going to keep me up at night. Anyways, the Greeks built the Parthenon as a tribute and place of worship for the goddess Athena, who is the patron of the city Athens. It was built in the 5th century BC after the Greeks defeated Persian invaders during the Greco-Persian War. Over the years, the Parthenon saw many different reigns exchange ownership of its land, and those different reigns used the temple in various ways. At the end of the 17th century, during the reign of the Ottomans, the temple was partially destroyed by a Venetian bomb during the Mauryan War. This is because the Ottomans were using the Parthenon as a place to store ammunition. Before its partial destruction, the Parthenon was nearly 230 feet long and 100 feet wide, as well as being 45 feet tall. The temple was an extremely impressive display of ancient Greek engineering. If it hadn't been partially destroyed by human conflict over the years, then it would look relatively the same as when it was first built. Probably one of the most famous ancient structures are the Moai Statues that were built on Easter Island by the Rapa Nui indigenous people. The Rapa Nui constructed over 900 of these, and they span in size anywhere from 5 feet to over 30 feet in length, with the largest unfinished statue being nearly 70 feet long. These statues are littered all over the island, and it baffled people for centuries how these several-ton stone giants were able to be constructed and moved using ancient tools and techniques. Our best interpretation today of how these statues got moved around the island is by placing ropes around the head and by shifting the weight around it so it can walk to where it needs to be. The Moai represent all of the chieftains or important figures in Rapa Nui society that have passed away. At some Moai sites, there are burial grounds that are placed close by that house the people close to their respective statue. The Rapa Nui wanted to pay respects to their influential figures by immortalizing them in stone, preserving their legacy for future generations to look upon, and they still stand 1,000 years later. I hope you enjoyed this little informational video I put together. Researching these structures gave me a new appreciation for what I already considered to be very impressive builds. I hope you learned something new, and if you made it all the way to the end of this video and you like what I do, I would appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel and write down in the comments what video you would like me to cover next. Later.